Streaming live around the world, this is Paper Cuts with Brad and Jay.
I'm the one you love. I'm Jay. Thanks so much for stopping by. Over there's Brad. It's his show.
It's his show. That's why I'm the host, and we just love Jay.
Now you know it's all natural. I mean, nothing's rehearsed, right?
No, absolutely nothing is rehearsed on this show.
God, you just suck the life out of me. It feels like
you've got a lot grayer since we started this.
I have. I know. I have. Welcome to the program. Don't call me AI. Jiang.
We are live.
And welcome back. Yeah, brand new episode of Paper Cuts. And we're starting things off because I was just informed I said our guest's name incorrectly in the intro. So I mean,
30 seconds of the show, and
really,
you've already messed up.
Goodness. This new show, this new episode, because we took some time off, Brad. Did we not take some time off? I didn't realize we took time off.
2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, we did, right? And then, come back with a huge show tonight, and I've already flubbed up.
You flubbed it up, man.
Yeah. Little side note before we get too far into this. I hope everyone grabbed the latest edition of the Siren's Call e-zine.
Why's that, Jay?
That dropped late yesterday. Most people saw it drop today, the summer edition. Brad and I are in there. Feature project. How cool is that? There's a nice 5-page paper cut spread that I wrote an essay. Brad wrote an essay. We had Morgan Freeman, right? Yeah, Morgan Freeman wrote an essay for us. But let me tell you guys about this experience. We were talking off air about procrastinating and how Brad does that. Like, I had to stay on him every day. Hey, do you have your part done yet? I have an editor. Do you have your part done yet? But my editor needs to read it every day. How long did it take you, Brad? We had like 2 or 3 months to put this thing together. It took you.
No, it wasn't that long, was it?
Yeah, it took you all.
I gave it to you a couple of days before the deadline.
Right. And so my editor was sweating trying to get it done in time. That's what it was. All right, enough about us.
We made it.
Pick up the latest e-zine, the Siren's Call e-zine. There's a nice feature about us because we deserve it.
No one cares about us. No one cares about us.
All right.
Let's talk about our guest.
Tonight we're going to talk about auctioning off houses that bring back the dead, and we're going to talk about AI. That's an odd mixture, right?
It is.
Welcome to the show. I've already messed her name up in the intro. I totally apologize.
Ai Jiang.
Please come
Ai
back.
Jiang.
There you go. I'm horrible with names.
I couldn't say Catriona Ward's name, and
stuff.
she told me 1 second before I tried to pronounce it, and I still messed it up. So
no.
I just butchered her name. So I felt so bad.
Well, she tried to tell us too on the air too, and I don't think either one of us could do it. The way she was putting a certain emphasis on a certain part, and I just couldn't. Yeah.
My brain's not smart enough to read. I just fake it. I don't read anything. I just make everything up.
Yeah, I don't hold it against us. Okay, we're two dopes with microphones, so don't hold it against us. This is your second time here, and we're just honored that you decided to come back. Really,
usually we scare people away the first time. So anybody who comes back for a second time, we're honored.
I mean, I'm just honored to be here because if I recall, like the first time I was here, I didn't really talk much because I was like very camera shy. So
and you were sharing with a lot of people, right? You had to share time with with others. So
Tiffany and Holly and Red and Michael.
They all took all the airtime. We were like, we got to get her back and talk to her. I'm kidding. I'm joking. I'm just. So welcome to our little shindig here. It seems like you have a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of books and how. By the way, how tired are you?
I am surprisingly lucid for what it's worth.
How many hours of sleep have you gotten in the last 2 days?
I don't know how much sleep I got the day before yesterday, but this morning I got about like 5-6 hours from like 11 a.m. to like 5 p.m. So it's not too bad.
Okay, that's not bad. Yeah, it's usually more than what I get. So you're doing good. You're doing good. If you get slap happy, don't worry about it. We're used to it. So,
but for those that don't know, why are you so exhausted? What have you been doing?
So I've had a novel deadline from like January, basically, that I've pushed back till today.
January? Really?
Yeah, like yeah. because I had a lot of stuff with like LINGHUN and stuff coming out, and like the promo took a lot of time and Odyssey, so I was like, there's just no way I was gonna get it done until like 5 days ago. I was like, oh, my deadline is basically today, so I have to finish the whole novel, which was like, I was like, okay, around like 20K more words in the last 4 days. So that's basically what I've been doing.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
Was that a
How do you get all
struggle
those
to get that
words in
much?
that short of time? That's just
I I feel like so like basically it was around 4,000 on Monday and then 2,000 on Tuesday and then 4,700 on Wednesday. And then last night I worked yesterday I worked from like 3 p.m. to this morning 11 a.m.
Wow.
9,200 words because I was like I only have a day left. But I feel like doing it in a row really does help with momentum. Like you're used to
Mhm.
like pushing past, kind of like when you do jogging, right? You like get faster and faster times the more you do it. So it wasn't like nearly as bad. And I had just finished the Chinese drama I was watching. That was distracting me. So I didn't have that yesterday to like pull me away.
so what was it? What did you use to help you stay up during this time? Nothing illegal, right? We could talk about, you didn't use anything
Chugging Red
special.
Bull and stuff.
Yeah.
No. I actually can't do coffee or energy drinks, and I don't like drink alcohol, so I kind of just like drink iced tea and pray for the best, and then occasionally watch like funny videos to wake myself up.
Yeah. I don't even know if I say that many words in that short period of time.
You
I
do, Jay.
can't.
You talk a lot. I can't ever
Okay.
shut you up.
Maybe I do, but I couldn't see typing that many words in that short period of time. So
Is everything just blurring together by the end on the screen?
I think so. I am a very chaotic writer. Like I'm not a very plotter or like outliner. So I had a
Mhm.
lot of notes, not in linear order, but dumped in like the sections I needed to write in.
Mm.
And so when I look back at it, I was like, it was like 8 a.m. at this point. I was like, what is even going on in this document?
tears in your eyes. Oh my gosh, everything's just blend. Okay.
I
Yeah.
don't usually swear, but I swore so much in my head last night.
Nice. So this is something for the future that we could expect. But we're living here in the now that you have a couple of pieces of work floating around out there, correct?
Yes.
And this was your first novel you finished? Your first one?
Basically, yes. Unless you count like, the serials I wrote in high school that like never really had an ending.
Just kept
Oh,
on going and going.
how many pieces do you have for those? Are they
In
connected
high
all?
in high school, it was like three little romance things, and it was
Okay.
basically when I have never experienced romance and wanted to experience romance and wrote them.
It's what you thought it was going to be like.
No.
Yeah. So what is your novel about? Can you say a little tease at all?
So I'll try like not to do too much of a spoiler, but it's like a
Mhm.
post-apocalyptic science fantasy novel that is
Okay.
inspired by Chinese opera. So it's
Okay.
like the society is built on Chinese opera and
That's a lot to
opera masks.
digest. Okay. Post-apocalyptic
Sci-fi,
sci-fi
Chinese opera. That sounds cool.
fantasy. Okay.
Yes.
So did
That
something like
sounds
that
busy. That really sounds busy.
It is and it isn't at the same time, I think.
I mean, not for you because it was your brainchild. You put it all together. For someone like me, I'm like, okay, I got to break this down into what the genres are and how they blend together and interact with each other. Okay,
Yes.
That sounds
interesting.
super cool though. Like that sounds very unique, nothing I've ever heard of before. I'm excited for it.
I want to say it's like I'm trying to think what it would be a blend of. Maybe something like mm, what's something post-apocalyptic that like recently came out? I want to say like maybe Hunger Games-ish, but without the violence mixed with Avatar, because there's like cli-fi elements to it.
Okay. I was gonna say when we get to it later on, that LINGHUN reminded me of Hunger Games a little bit too, at some point.
Did it? Because I started
I did.
I got a little. This may be totally off the wall. We could hop into that if you want to start with that first. But I got a feel of the lottery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That-
Okay.
that- that and Hunger
I'm
Games.
not totally. I didn't think. I never saw Hunger Games. So I don't know. Or read Hunger Games. I don't know.
You've never seen it, Jay? You
No.
need to watch the movies, man.
What?
But
They were
I
all right. They were all right
feel,
movies.
I got a feel for the lottery in LINGHUN. Did I say it right?
LINGHUN.
LINGHUN. Okay. I'm
Come on,
so,
Jay.
I'm horrible with names. Are we going
No,
back to
you're
the top of the show? Okay.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit. Let's start out with your new novelette that just came out from what is it? Shortwave Publishing. Who put it out? It's I asked before the show. It's not I A. Wow, what is going on? AI. Goodness gracious.
We can never take a few weeks off again.
No, we're rusty.
Wow.
But
I mean, technically, you can read the title backwards, so it
There
does
you go.
work.
thanks for saving me there. That was horrible. But I want to talk about the cover really quick because a lot of times I feel like the covers just kind of get glossed over. And you had this nice long Twitter thread.
You can
the other
read
day.
it backwards. Wow. I just now figured
Jay just did it.
it out. Okay. All right.
What is it
Let's
called?
start
When
over.
you,
Let's
what's
totally
it called
start
when you can read it back? It's not an anagram. That's not right. What is it called when you can read something backwards and forwards? What, like radar's the same backwards as forwards? What is that called?
I think it's like a palindrome. I think I'm saying that wrong, but
Palindrome? Is that it?
yes.
Okay. We work together.
And I just figured it out. So
Jay's
I'm
like,
looking at it.
yes.
I have it written down. I'm like, wow. Okay.
Was that on
I'm-
purpose that you did that, or was
Oh.
that a happy accident? That it was the same backwards as forwards.
It was on purpose.
Okay.
Accidentally
talk
on
about-
purpose.
Accidentally on purpose. I want to talk about the cover design because you sort of broke it down. You have all these different stages, and I want to share a few pictures because a lot of times we don't get to talk about the cover design too much like this. And you said you got to work on it with your mom, which is really cool as well.
Yeah. So when I first placed the novelette at Shortwave, Alan had sent in the picture on the left. It was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I read the novelette and I think something like this would be great." And then because they usually do their own design, and I feel like with small presses they're much more flexible with
Mhm.
what you can do with the cover compared to bigger publishers. So I was like, "Oh, well, my mom's an artist, why don't we get her to do something?" Um Yeah, so then the one on the right was the initial sketch she came up with after I sent her a bunch of cyberpunk reference pictures because she's never done cyberpunk before. She mostly does landscape paintings or very realistic human portraits.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And this is it supposed to be you? Is that, or is it just a random person?
It's not supposed to be me. It's a mix of different random people that we found reference pictures for, and my mom kind of just mishmashed them together with me when she was drawing the pictures. She was like, "Oh, I like this person's nose, so I'm gonna put the nose here," and
Okay.
then yeah, model the nose after this person or the eyes after that person. So then she came up with the one on the left, and I thought it was not gritty enough because cyberpunk you usually have the very dark tone dystopian tones, so then she ended up darkening it to the picture on the right.
How does she draw? These were freehand drawings, or is this a computer program where she's drawing these? Or
So she did everything on canvas. So she drew it out on paper first, and
Okay.
then she redid it again on a actual canvas, painting canvas, and then she
Okay.
painted it with watercolor. Yeah.
That's cool.
oh wow,
Yeah, so she has the canvas at home right now, but we kind of messed up the background because we were playing with it afterwards to make it more cyberpunk. So yeah, so it has the original person now, but the background is muddled.
I like that you said that it was different pieces, so an eyes of one person, the nose of somebody else, and that kind of falls in line with the story as well, with sort of the body modifications and stuff that's going on. That's kind of cool as well. Sort of an
Yeah.
amalgamation of different people.
Yeah, for sure.
And I like all the highlights she did, sort of doing the cyberpunk, the robotic kind of style on it.
Yeah, so for this one, she took a picture of the canvas because we were doing it kind of remotely. So she was doing it at well, I'm at her house now, but I was at the house I share with my spouse. but we
Mhm.
were like going back and forth. So she took a picture of the canvas and passed it to me, and I did the robotic outlines in Procreate. Because I
Okay.
was thinking, yeah, I was thinking about making them look like, the neon signs in Chinatown, because we have that kind of setting in IMI.
Mhm.
But then, as you can see on the left, it kind of got like very, very busy, and I was like, okay, maybe not. So I like changed it to one color, and then the gold, I was like, oh, it kind of looks like too superhero-y. So then,
Okay.
yeah.
But
It
how did
also
you how
reminded
did
me
you
of
choose though? Because I like them all. Like I really dig that kind of art style. So I bet it was hard to choose like which one to kind of stick with.
What do you mean? Like which art style? Like the cover
I mean,
design
I'm
or
just
like
looking at
the
like what we're seeing right now. I mean, I just like
Oh,
the
how
color
all of
palette
them
and
kind of
stuff.
stick out. Yeah, the color palette and how the neck's a little different and it's got the shading and all that stuff. Like,
so for this one, I think the original one Alan had sent me, my publisher, was the one, it's like the third one on the top row. And
Mhm.
then I thought it maybe looked too like space opera-y in a way, like Martian or outer space kind of vibe. So then
Mhm.
I like put it through like filtering programs to play around with the different colors just to see like what it would look like if we had something else.
And then this is the final one on the left, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at the cover from before, and I was like, it looks very like a pulp science fiction type of thing, but I wanted to
Mhm.
give it a little more like futuristic um kind of look, or like modern kind of look. And I really liked how he did the repeating fonts in the very first
yeah,
iteration of the mock-up. So I
Uh-huh.
played around with like the different like where the eyes are on the side, and Alan took it and kind of like revamped it to be what it is on the screen now, along with the color adjustment,
And
so it looks more cyberpunk.
I like the glitch effect. I don't know if people can tell. Like it's kind of glitching through there and stuff as well.
yeah.
It
You can
looks
see a
really
little
cool.
through the hair, the streaks in the hair there. You can see on the left.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I like
Yeah.
her eye almost looks like a cybernetic eye with the blue underneath of it.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was also added in through the Procreate. Yeah. Or Paint, or whatever app it was
One
called.
of those
I
apps.
just know I just know it was on my iPad and I used it. As you can
But
tell,
your mom's got the
mediocre.
original. Your mom's got the original canvases that she put them on still.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
So I probably find it at some point, but I'll have to go look around her art room.
So what was that process like getting to work so closely with your mom on a project for this? Is that
I think
cool?
it was,
Or was
yeah,
there any fighting? Like, no, I like this. No, I like this better. Or is it pretty smooth?
I think it was pretty smooth because she knew it was like for something I'd written kind of thing, and I would like
Mhm.
understand the themes and stuff a little more than she does, because like even if she reads the thing, as I was telling you, because of the language barrier, it's a little hard for her to like completely understand the
Mhm.
story. So I usually just kind of like break it down to a really brief synopsis and try to explain it to her in Chinese when we were working on it. But we
Mhm.
did go through like, I didn't put it on, but we did go through quite a few different sketches to get to what we had now, because she wasn't like, she couldn't understand like what exactly like cyberpunk we were looking for. And it
Mhm.
was like, yeah, but I think the result came out really well. So I'm very excited that I
It's a
got to
cool
work
looking
with her
cover.
on it. Yeah.
Now,
That is cool.
has
You get to
she
work with her.
called? Has she called for all of your next books to do your cover?
Do all your covers.
Well, she said that like if she has the opportunity, she would do it kind of thing. But then it really depends, right, on how like
I
flexible
mean, you see
marketing
how
teams
much
are
you've
and
lucked
stuff.
out, right? I mean, a lot of people are write a book and they're like, now I got to find a cover artist. You've lucked out because you have your mom. So every book you write, she's able to do all that stuff for you now. So
And she does it for free, right? No charge for the cover art.
does she
Yeah,
get credit in the book? So that's
yes,
all.
of course she gets credit. Well, no, I take her out for many dinners.
There you go. So not free at all.
Do you buy
I
the
mean,
supplies for her, the art supplies and everything? It's like, here,
yeah.
do your thing.
Well, I mean, I tried to offer her payment, and she was like, "No, I'm your mom," and I was like, "I
Yeah.
know, but you did the work. And she was like, just buy me some food. And I was like, all right.
I would happily take food as payment any day of the week.
Now you know what's going to happen next time you go over to her house. She's going to have a bunch of different things set for you. Like write a story about this painting, and write a story about this painting, and have everything pre-made for you.
Actually, she does the opposite. It was really funny because when I was working with like poetry and short stories mostly, she would sometimes ask me like what I had most recently published, and she'll do like little paintings or drawings inspired by them, which is really cute.
That's cool. And
Yeah.
I think we said this off air, but I remember you posted, it's been a while now, that your mom created a Goodreads account just so she could rate and review your books, which is really cool. I love it when authors come on and they talk about how supportive their family is, their spouse or their parents or their friends or whatever. I always think that's really cool.
It's really funny because at first, both my mom and dad, they were like, oh, just treat it as a hobby, you know, you can't make money from this thing kind of thing. But then now they're like super supportive. They're like, when is the next book coming out? Is
Yeah.
it going to be made into a movie?
Yeah.
What is going on?
The confidence has totally changed for you.
They're like, why are you procrastinating to the last minute to do 20,000 words?
No, actually though. And then my spouse and my dad is really funny because they'll like recommend the books to their friends and stuff, right? And they'll come back to me. They're like, who sold the most books?
So it's a competition between them now.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Set up a little fundraiser now. Whichever one of you sells the most of my books, you get free
It's
dinner.
the dinner on me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did you write this one? Because it's very topical for now. Did you write it? Was it been a while ago, or is it more recent you wrote it? Or
So it's funny because I wrote it like last November before the whole boom with all the AI stuff. So, but then I knew it had to come out like earlier rather than later instead of like pushing it back to next year or something like that and spreading out the releases. But then, sorry, as it was like approaching release and all the AI stuff happened, I was like, oh my God.
it's like you perfectly timed it almost.
I mean, yes and no in the sense that like when I was looking at it, I was like, oh my gosh, like are people gonna think I wrote this with AI because of the name? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then the whole thing with Twitter and people muting the word AI, and then one of my mutuals, they were like, oh yeah, like all your tweets disappeared from my
Oh,
timeline.
because they muted your name.
Yeah. And then I had to put my first and last name together, and then they came back and they were like, oh yeah, now I see your tweets. And I was like, no.
I remember you posted something recently saying, and I don't know if it was just you or you're asking opinions, but if you should change your name or whatever, I guess maybe create a pen name or maybe change your Twitter handle or whatever, so people wouldn't think you were AI or using AI to write your books and stuff.
Yeah, no, it was like someone was like asked me if that was a concern of mine. If I would like, not like they recommend me changing my name, but like they
Yeah.
asked if I like have ever considered it because of what's happening so far. And then I was like, no, because it's my name and I don't want to like change my name.
Not change your real name, yeah, but
Yeah.
But so
I-
here's a little bit of a controversial question, and you don't have to answer it. But do you think the community on Twitter, the horror community, the writers, do you think there's a little bit of overreaction to the whole AI thing when it blew up? What was it, November, December, January, when people started like going crazy about it? Because AI actually has been around for quite some time, and like I think I was confused on why or how people were blowing up about it, because people seemed like they were shocked with some of the stuff that was happening. We should have known this stuff was going to happen, you know, or maybe I'm just totally lost, or I don't know.
I think it was because it became more readily available for just everybody to use sort of around that time. Because it was I know there's the chat GPT or whatever, and then there's the picture one. I can't remember what it's called. I don't know. A lot of people were using it because they weren't thinking about it. They're like, oh, this picture looks awesome. And then they realized it's stealing from all these other things to make what it's making. And I think
right. I totally get that. But I saw a few comments here and there. It's just like, AI's around us, like wherever you look, AI's around us already, you know. So I was just kind of, I guess I was shocked at the some of the reaction, I guess I could say, you know. Hopefully I didn't say too much to get canceled, but that's just
for me, I think it was more that was dipping into like the creative world of
Yeah.
creating paintings, and hey, I'm gonna type this one sentence prompt and it's going to write me a novel for me. I think it was more.
Yeah, I know. I'm
that
totally
than-
against that, but it's like some of the reaction. I mean, I was doing a little research today about AI and like seeing how long it's been actually in existence. Like I was just confused. I'm still confused about the whole thing. I mean, I'm old, all right. So the whole technology thing, I'm like, what? So
It's like the thing you talk about. You talk about buying a certain movie and then you get ads on your phone for that movie. Like that's AI doing that, but it's not the creative part of it, I guess. I don't know. What are your thoughts on it, Ai?
I feel like
throw you right in the fire.
Just throw you in there. If I'm going down, you're going down with me. Okay.
I feel like I am not like educated enough in this field to make like very, very informed answers, but I do think it is kind of like what Brad was saying on how it's like creeping into the creative field rather than, you know, the way we've used it before with like grammar programs or like, you know, algorithms that would like introduce you to certain things, which people don't like either, but like directed ads and whatnot. Yeah, so I think it's like the rise of AI and like the way it's like taking the works of others to create something new and kind of like replacing a lot of human creators that's like making people angry.
Right. Yeah, I think that's one of the big things with the WGA strike was they're wanting the AI to be taken out.
Yeah.
And the studios weren't willing to do that, at least at this point.
And I totally get all of that, and especially like what James is saying here, because I'm, I'm a music guy, and what he's saying, how AI is being music stuff like that. I mean, yeah, I'm totally against it taking away any originality or taking someone's original work and using it without permission. But I guess what I'm looking at is, it's always around us. I mean, we're using a computer right now that's AI is involved with the program we're using. So it's like not anything new. It's just it seems like it took like a new step.
Yeah, I think it's the way people started using it is what.
Yeah, the way it's starting to be used, and everyone's reaction is valid, and I totally agree because it takes away some of that originality. It's just I mean I think it's going to even go farther and deeper. And I'm just curious about the reactions in the future when it starts, because it's taking over the world. We're doomed. All right. Thanks, guys, for stopping by.
I'll say this one more thing real quick. I read something recently where the ones that like to make the pictures and stuff, it's starting to cannibalize itself because now it's learning from other AI generated things and it's starting to degrade itself now.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting.
I haven't seen that. I guess I'll have to Google that up. That is interesting.
Yeah. So the market has been so saturated with AI images that it's now using those to create new images and it's starting to degrade again. It's messing up it was a certain term they use. I don't remember what it was.
It's like you probably can't figure out where it started now. It's probably so deep, so many different layers of it.
It's messing up with the building blocks of it. I can't remember what term they use for it, but it's starting to degrade. But your novelette sort of was prophetic in a way because what you talk about in the novelette's kind of what's going on with the creative aspects of it. The main character in your book is posing as AI, but they're doing it the human way. So did you do a lot of research with AI and stuff to inform the novelette, or was it just an idea you thought sounded cool? Or
I feel like with the way I normally write, I am not very like research or scientific heavy on it. I am more emotionally heavy and like philosophical musing, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like using the backdrop of what I understand about AI and have like seen floating around and people's reaction to it and the way it's been used so far, rather than like a very heavily research AI based piece. It's more like exploring what would happen if people kind of like just forego human creation entirely in favor of AI, especially because I feel like people are being pushed more and more to work like longer hours and more efficiently and like just expected to be like hyper productive, right? Or you just can't make a living, especially like with creative work, like with publishing, you're already like not making a lot. And like if you are a slow writer, it doesn't favor you either, especially if it's like you don't get a big deal right off the bat or something, right? And then a lot of us will have to hold full-time jobs to kind of supplement the income and whatnot. And then, yeah.
Yeah, with it being like this sci-fi dystopian cyberpunk novel, like you didn't dwell on like the science aspects of it. It was much more about like the morality of it and things like that, which you spoke to just a second ago. And I really it felt like the main character was like stuck in this loop. Like they were trying to make money to pay off this debt and then upgrade themselves, but then they would have to use that money to, they would sort of degrade, and it was just like this vicious cycle they were stuck in. They just couldn't get out of it.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I like the way that the main character kind of realized, they are everyone's relying on them because of their battery usage and all that stuff, and it was happening nonchalantly, like people were taking it for granted how to rely on the one, and the battery is running out. And I was getting a little claustrophobic when the battery was, the battery's going down, and it got down pretty low, and I'm like, oh God, what's going to happen now? I started tensing up, and it's just,
I was just thinking, why would you do that to yourself? Why would you let your battery get so low?
It reminded me, there's a movie, and I can't think of what it's called now, but it had Justin Timberlake in it. And
the time thing where they give him
the time thing. Yes, that's why I was getting a feel for that, because you had to make sure you had
cost him like 4 minutes to get a cup of coffee or whatever.
Right. That's what I was. Every time the battery started going down, I was like, oh gosh, that's what I was thinking. So plus the fact that without giving away too much because it's short, but needed a battery transplant instead of a heart transplant, and just
Mm-hmm. Like I could see like both ways of it. Like you upgrade yourself so you live longer and stuff, but then you keep becoming less and less human with each time you do it, losing your own humanity with it. Was that something you were kind of trying to go for, with the loss of humanity and things like that?
I think so, because it is very much like semi-autographical, autobiographical. The sleep deprivation is coming to me.
You
can
have
probably
an
tell
excuse. I totally
broken-
don't.
I'm breaking down. Oh my gosh. And I hope like whatever I just said to my agent is coherent and not like that. But anyway,
was it an email? You might want to go back and check.
I sent like the document already, so it's off, and we're gonna talk next week, and
Oh, boy.
I will deal with it for future eye. Anyway, but it is semi-autobiographical in the sense that like I used to work as a ghostwriter, and basically the faster you write, the more you make, right? Because it's based on word count, it's not based on hours. So it's like, let's say you get $20 a page or something like that. So if you can write that page very, very quickly with like high quality, then you make more money than someone who takes like, an hour or two to write that same page. So I was just thinking about like when I was doing that work, it was like almost soulless work in a way, because I was just like trying to churn things out as fast as I can and trying to ignore like human things that will like slow me down. So kind of like the way you would like ignore a battery, I would be like, oh yeah, I can just like eat a meal in 10 seconds and then go back to work, or like just skip a meal and I'll be fine. And then it's like when you think about why someone would ignore the battery for so long, it's like a lot of people do in real life. We see people overwork themselves all the time, and the way they neglect health and balance, like when it comes to work.
Yeah, I'm living proof.
Same.
Comment.
Same.
What did you say before? Your grandmother had to come and wake you up, tell you to eat something.
Yeah, what was that? Yes.
I was like, sleep is more important right now. I'll eat later.
So it's a commentary on
just create another book, okay?
Yeah.
Your mom needs to work to make the cover, so you must keep making these books. So.
I mean, that sounds like good logic to me.
Right.
So it's a commentary on AI and also sort of just the workforce in general, how all these corporations just treat basically people like robots, work 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, and they don't really care about anything else. They just want, the bottom line, make their product, make their money. And then the people themselves are just expendable. And that's kind of what it feels like, in the novel, because they're kind of on the outskirts of town. What was the town called again? I can't remember.
Home.
The city. Home. No, that's the other book, right?
LINGHUN. Oh, sorry. Emmett.
Yeah. And New Era is like the big global corporation entity. Did you want it to make it sort of feel almost? It's not really post-apocalyptic, but dystopian in a way because there's like the acid rain, and they're kind of the not well-off people are like living under the bridge in these sort of makeshift places and whatnot. Were you going for that sort of aesthetic from the beginning, or is that just something that came along naturally along the way?
I love writing dystopian things, as
Hmm.
negative as that sounds. But so it was like very much intentional. Um, because so my spouse is a architect and he
Hmm.
actually had a project. So I like asked him if I can like draw inspiration from it. Where it was building homeless shelters under the bridge to better use up space kind of
Uh-huh.
thing. Um, and I was just thinking about the fact that like the housing issue and stuff like that now, where my friend, she lives in downtown, there is a corporate owned apartment building and over half of it is empty just because no one can afford to live in it. And then they still don't lower the price so people can live in it, which is really weird. And
Hmm.
apparently a lot of the university students are like living in shelters now as well, just because they can't like afford tuition and like to live in those kind of buildings.
Wow. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
they got to choose one or the other. Yeah.
Because normally with something like this, before you would read it, you think, oh, it's gonna be this nice, bright, shiny, everything's nice and squeaky clean, but there's this nice grit and sort of dirt to the whole thing. I guess kind of like you were talking about, like a Chinatown or kind of like a Blade Runner type of scenario. Yeah, I like it when it's not like the Jetsons. Everything's nice and squeaky clean. There's some dirt and some grit. That makes it feel more realistic, even though this was like 1,000 years in the future or so. I think it said at one point.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
even go ahead.
Oh, no, no. I was going to say because it's like very much based on like late stage capitalism and the way
Hmm.
that like if one big corporation basically monopolizes all the industries, they don't have any competition and they can afford to just do whatever they want, right? And no one can
Hmm.
really do anything about it just because like no one else has anything that can compete with them, right?
Yeah, Amazon. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I could totally see that because New Era in the book, they basically control everything. They control the housing, and seems like most of the jobs, or if not all the jobs, I think they do the power, all that kind of stuff. So they also seem like they were the authority. They come maybe arrest people or in control of the police, at least possibly. It's a scary thing to think about. One corporation just doing whatever they want to. And no one else has
Yeah.
really any other power. That's kind of the scariest thing about that one, almost, as opposed to losing your body parts and losing your humanity.
How long did it take you to write this one?
So I approached it similarly to my novel.
Oh,
So
geez.
at about 3 days.
Yeah.
It actually, yeah. I like did about
But did you have the concept in your head the whole time? You just letting it brew, or was it like something that, oh, here's something topical. Let's do this, and I'm like, it's the deadline, so that's going to work.
usually I like brew all my stories for a very long time before I write it. I think there were a few Twitter threads where I was hinting at like the fact that I wanted to do something with my name eventually just because it's like I. And I
Right.
Mhm.
think this was like early 2022, I think. And then so I've been like brewing on it since the first time I've mentioned it, but I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with it until like November. And then when I finally figured it out, I usually like write everything very fast after I think about it for a really long time. So the actual
Mhm.
writing process is like short, but then the actual like, creation process in my mind is like very long.
Mhm. Was it always intended to be a novelette, or was it you just going to write it in whatever length it turned out to be? That's what it was going to be.
I had thought about making it a novella at first, but
Mhm.
then it just it just happened to be a novelette, so
Would you ever come back to this world? Because I think this is a really interesting world you created. I'd like to see more, maybe other characters, other perspectives
I'll
about
say
what's going on
like a
there.
little spin-off with another character happening around the same time.
Hmm.
so the opera, the one about like the opera we're losing it again. The opera novel, it
Uh-huh.
kind of takes place in this kind of like dystopian-ish post-apocalyptic world. And we'll
Hmm.
see like, the roaches in I Am I mentioned again in opera.
Okay.
So yeah, so opera is like that kind of story. It's not this exact world, but it does have like bits, like hints of it moved over and
Hmm.
explored differently.
Okay. And for those that haven't read it, what is your elevator pitch for I Am I?
So it is basically about a cyborg named I that is disguised as an AI, so they can survive in a late capitalist society named Emmett.
Not the other one, not Home.
No.
And this just came out what, last week or so, 2 weeks ago? Hadn't been that long, has it?
No, like 10 days ago on June 20th. Yeah.
What's the reception been so far with it?
I think so far it's been like very like positive, which is nice.
Mhm.
I think it's because it is very much centered around humanity and kind of like holding on to it, or at least like reclaiming humanity, and not losing sight of what makes us human and what is it like what is it about our art that is important.
Mhm. I think my favorite part was the ending. I really enjoyed the ending of it, and I won't say what happens at the end or anything, but
Don't give it away, Brad. Don't
it was
give the
very
ending away, Brad.
it was very poignant and sweet. I thought at the end, I like the ending a lot. How you wrapped it up, because it could have gone multiple directions. It could have been very bleak, but I thought it was kind of a nice, sweet ending for this one.
I think because I went very, very bleak for LINGHUN, that's all I'll say. I had to balance it a little.
Uh-huh. Rob Smith in the comments says you should teach workshops on the power of sleep deprivation for writing fiction. Charge a ton of money.
I mean, sleep deprivation is cheaper than like drugs that I hear some people do. So like
I asked if you did some legal stuff to stay awake now. So
it is very much legal.
yes.
James mentioned a second ago about the ghostwriting. What kind of ghostwriting stuff did you do for? Was it just like boring, like pamphlets and stuff, or nonfiction kind of
I
stuff?
I cannot
Are you allowed
talk
to
too
say?
much about
Okay.
it, but it was like a very wide variety of things. I like
Okay.
basically dabbled in a little of everything except like legal work.
Did you glean or learn anything from those experiences that you are now putting into your fiction?
For sure. I think because some of it, I'm trying to phrase this vaguely, but some of it was like research based. So like
Mm,
I learned a lot from just like researching different things I would not have like otherwise research kind of thing for those projects. And like
mhm.
definitely some of it would inspire things I write or like make it into the works I have.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So before the show, Brad and I was talking. I came up with I did some little AI research. So we could wrap up the whole AI talk, but I was looking for some. I was trying to find some fun facts about AI.
Oh yeah.
Some fun facts.
What are they? What's fun about it then?
Fascinating. A couple of things I found here. Okay, more fascinating than fun, I guess you could say. Like Leonardo da Vinci produced basic designs for a humanoid robot around 1495. That
See, I
just
wonder
blew
what
my
his
mind.
version of a robot would be compared to
I
what
don't
we
know.
think of
I'm,
as a
I'm,
robot.
That's
I'm really curious about that now. So
I'm
yeah,
assuming he would have thought they were made out of metal, but he wouldn't have any idea about circuits or anything like that. I don't guess he would. I don't know. He was a smart guy. He might have.
now here's
Ro-
something. So because we were talking about opera and AI, composer Jacques Offenbach's 1881 opera. It's
oh
it
no.
translates to The Tales of Hoffman. Features a life-size robotic doll named Olympia. Just for those just joining us, this is the extent of my research for the show. By the way,
What year was that? 1800 something?
1881.
See, it's so weird that 1400s and 1800s they're
Yes,
thinking about robots. Like that blows
Mhm.
my mind.
but here's the one that kind of really grabbed me, just because of the person that's involved. Tech moron Elon Musk is outspoken. I read that wrong. I'm sorry. Tech mogul Elon Musk is outspoken regarding the potential dangers to humankind posed by artificial intelligence.
I mean, has no
He's
one
called
seen
AI humanity.
Terminator?
I know he's called AI humanity's greatest existential threat. He compared the attempts to create it to summoning the demon. That's from Elon Musk, who's like his whole
Interesting.
Yeah, his whole
Mhm.
foundation is like technology and stuff, right? It's something I don't know. Just
I don't know if you all have seen them. There's those. I
my
don't know
research
if
is
they're-
done. I'm done.
Your research is done. I don't know if they're
Yeah.
the military ones or not, but they're these robots that can like jump and they like do these leaps like cheetahs and stuff. They're terrifying. You can knock it over and it can stand back up.
Oh, interesting.
You could build
They
an army
program
with that, right?
they program them and they do all the TikTok dances and everything. So they're like super agile. They're extremely
I mean, is that the future of defense?
maybe
You know, so
all that stuff terrifying. Like that artificial
I
intelligence
think
like
we're
that
getting
really
too
creeps
deep.
me out.
I think we're getting way too deep for this. I think we need to move on to the next book.
Move on.
because
We'll move on.
We're going to get some haters. I think
It's okay.
that paper cuts. All they do is talk about AI taking over the world.
Oh no.
So let's talk about your novella, LINGHUN. That came out. Was it earlier this year or in the last year?
So it came out in early April, April 4th of this
Okay.
year. Yeah.
Dang, I feel like it came out a long time ago compared to that. So
I,
only
d-
2
I
months?
know.
And the reception for that's been super positive. Everyone I've seen that's read it has
I think
absolutely loved
Keelan
it.
Patrick Burke is recommended it. I follow him on Amazon, and every now and then when you follow an author on Amazon, they recommend books too. And I'm pretty sure I got an email today that he was recommending your book. That's pretty cool.
Keelan, he's so supportive. I
Yeah.
love him. He's great.
It's what's his name? Clay McCullough Chapman at Butcher Cabin Books. He wrote like a little placard for it
Yeah.
and stuck on there. He was recommending it there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is
I like No, go
No,
ahead.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, go
Okay.
ahead.
No, finish your thought.
No, I was just gonna say I'm like very, very appreciative of all like my blurbers for LINGHUN because they had like such amazing things to say and they were like really like vocal about loving the novella when it first came out, which really helped in like, spreading word of mouth. Because I think, especially for indie publishing, word of mouth makes a really huge difference.
Right.
Yeah. It can make or break a book, really, when you think about it. Did you expect this amount of reception or this, not to say that you thought it was going to be bad, but this amount of positive reception, like everyone like really championing it?
I think with writing, it's like very strange in the way that you kind of go into it not expecting anything and expecting everything at the same time,
Mhm.
which like kind of cancels out, I suppose. But I just kind
So
of like wait.
expect nothing.
Yeah, I kind expect neutrality,
Mhm.
but I kind of just went into it just hoping that it will resonate with someone the same
Mhm.
way that the story had resonated with me while I was writing it. But I just kind of went into it thinking if I work very hard and try to put the book in front of people, someone must like it, right?
Uh-huh.
Even if like not everyone likes it, which is like fair because there's no book that everyone loves.
Yeah. You have a very interesting, unique take on haunted houses and ghosts. And I love the cover. The cover has the upside down house. And it's like you flipped sort of the genre on its head. Was that on purpose to have the house upside down?
That was actually not on purpose. So like the cover art behind that, I sent a bunch of like reference pictures to my publisher, which were like mostly just right side up houses. And
Mhm.
then he came back with this one. He was like, "Look what I found." And I was like, "It's perfect." So that's basically how that went about. But I do believe so like the original artwork's name is titled The Fall of the House of Usher by
Okay.
Edgar
Edgar
Allan
Allan Poe.
Poe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So that was really cool.
I do like that it's an upside down house because, like you said, you sort of flip what most people would expect a haunted house novel to be, and that you just do like something completely opposite. It's more like I think someone else said it. It's more like the living or haunting the ghosts instead of the other way around in this one.
I think it's very interesting that like a lot of the times when I'm like watching Western media movies and things like that about ghosts, it's always about ghosts coming back to life, haunting people, terrorizing people and houses. But
Mhm.
then a lot of what I grew up with concerning like spirits in general in like
Mhm.
media in my culture, not always, they also have like horrifying stuff, but just not as common, are like
Mhm.
spirits as guides or like your ancestors coming back to help you do something and like
Mhm.
more either like neutral or benevolent ghosts rather than like evil ones. So I was just like thinking about like the different kinds of ghosts that might appear rather than like just the very like vengeful ones.
I was wanting to ask because I'm not going to pretend that like I know anything about it, but is Chinese culture, and I know China's huge, but is it a lot different from Western culture when it comes to spirits and ghosts? I feel like with the book, it was more like they were treating them more in a more respectful way as compared to Westerners. You know, oh, they're bad, they're evil. We It's a haunted house. You don't want to go in there. But in this, you know, they're striving.
Yeah, it's like
Like
they're wanting to come back. They're wanting
their
them
whole
to be
goal is to live with them, and
right.
not in a fearful way, but like just to spend. I guess grief also plays a lot into it, but to spend more time with them, and there was a lot more respect with it. And I didn't know if that was a cultural thing or just something you did for the story, or
So I won't speak about like culture as a whole, but more so like
Mhm,
my family's culture and like my
mhm,
region's culture, where like when I was a child, my grandma would always bring me up the mountain. So she like lived on the rural side of like the province we're in. And so
mhm.
she would take me up to the mountain and we would burn offerings for like the spirits of those who have passed, basically. So it's not like, they're gonna come back and haunt us. It's more like, respect thing. The spirits
Right.
are there. We should go and respect them.
I guess that's sort of similar. Where here we go, put flowers on graves and stuff like that. So I can see where it kind of crosses over a little bit like that.
Mm.
So with this one, what does home stand for in the book? I can't remember what the acronym was.
So it was Homecoming of Missing Entities.
Homecoming of Missing Entities. And was it just a neighborhood or was it more like a town? Because I know there's a school and stuff. And I feel like at one point they were talking about like sort of a market area. It was more than just a little neighborhood, right?
So I was thinking about it in the way of like my neighborhood when like where I was growing up,
Hmm.
Scarborough. So it's like we have a school within like a 5-minute walk from my house.
Hmm.
And then within another 10 minutes you will have like a store or shop or something. So it is like kind of like a neighborhood where everything is quite like compacted.
Hmm. Because it seems like it's in our world. Because you mentioned Toronto, I think you mentioned Scarborough, and then there's this neighborhood which is just completely different and bizarre compared to everything else. And you sort of hint at why it is the way it is, and I won't go into that. We'll let the readers discover that for themselves. But what was sort of the genesis of this to have it where people are wanting to be haunted? You know, usually it's the other way around. They want to run away from those houses, but they're literally fighting for these houses to get in there to be haunted by, loved ones and stuff.
I think with my personal experience with death, a lot of the times it is not people who want to let go of grief, but people who are trying to desperately hold on to it in the
Mm.
Hmm.
sense that they don't want to forget the people they have lost or their memories. And so they keep trying to like relive those memories in their minds to hold on to these people. Or they'll say things like, oh, I remember when, so and so did this. I really miss them. I wish they would come back, right? Rather than
Hmm.
like, I wish I can let them go. So then I was kind of like drawing on that when writing home and the way that ghosts might be haunted by the living rather than the other way around, just because we are like so desperately trying to hold on to them and cling on to them in this world. And perhaps they don't want to be clinged on to. We never
Right.
know, right?
That's what I was thinking. Like the spirits of those deceased, they're probably ready to move on, but you have these families in this area like grabbing them, wanting them to come back, basically, instead of allowing them to carry on to where it needed to go. It's totally opposite than what you normally see, like in scary movies or other books about let's talk to the dead or whatever the case may be. It's like an interesting spin on the whole situation.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about the fact that, when ghosts appear in media, they appear in the same age that they like passed in, right? And I
Hmm.
always wonder, it's like, what if they actually age or something like that? And we're just not allowing them to age just because that's the way we remember them to be, right? And we don't remember them as anything else than like the moment they have passed, or
Right.
like prior to that.
Yeah, that's because there's sort of this weird time aspect with this book as well. And like you said, if a person dies, you're not going to think of them as, well, what would they look like 20 years later? If they do age on their end or their realm or wherever they are. But there's also with this, it's like this whole area is sort of stuck in the past because the school they're teaching outdated materials and everything like that. So it's almost like it's this time, like the whole area is like time is paused when I don't know something, maybe some event happened and someone died there, and just sort of everything is sort of stagnant now. So that makes sense what I'm trying to say.
It's almost like
Yeah,
time
yeah.
really does stand still in a
Yeah.
way, you know.
Yeah. I was trying to kind of like use home as a metaphor for the way that like might stand still in a grieving person's mind, even as their like physical body is aging, right? Because we see home as somewhere that's like, dust covered and there are like weeds growing, and it's like, it's almost like everyone's basically abandoned like what is around them in favor
Mhm.
of like staying in this like very stalled state in their minds, but outside everything is still changing, the world is still moving without them, and their physical body is still deteriorating.
Yeah,
How much fun
everything
did you
sort of
have?
becomes stagnant.
Yeah,
Sorry, Jake.
how much fun did you have writing the auction scene? It just seemed like everything went crazy.
That's the scene that makes me think of the Hunger Games and like the realtor. She reminded me of what's her name, Effie, I think her
Effie.
name from Hunger. Yes, I was like, that's the woman from Hunger Games.
The realtor was very much inspired by Effie, I must say. I was
Okay, cool.
contemplating, yeah, I was contemplating on whether to make the auction a very solemn kind of thing or a very
Mhm.
absurd kind of thing, on like drawing on I don't know if you both have watched Parasite before,
Yeah, I've seen
the
Parasite.
Korean thriller.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, parts of it. I haven't finished it yet. Yeah.
You must. But
I
anyways,
know.
there's like
I have a list.
but yeah, so there's like absurdity in it, where they kind of like almost characterize the characters
Yeah.
in how they kind of like explore capitalism or like just wealth versus the poor, and I kind of want to like draw on that kind of absurdist tone for that scene. I remember I read one review where one person was like, this reads very cartoonish, and I was like, yes.
What I was shooting for.
But yeah, so I was like, if I had it as solemn, I feel like it wouldn't bring out as much the absurdity of the town as if I made it very cartoonish and over the top.
Because the whole situation with the whole neighborhood is absurd. Of the lingers that just basically they're willingly becoming homeless to camp out on these lawns for just maybe the opportunity to
Yeah,
get
I
one of
really
these
felt for
houses.
them, the lingers.
It really showed how grief comes. I wrote it down. What's it say? Grief makes you blind to those around you. So like they put their blinders on and they're obsessed with grief. Like especially with was it Wen Chi? Is that how you pronounce the protagonist's name?
Mhm.
Her and her mother.
Yeah.
Like her mother is like almost acts like her daughter doesn't exist because she's so
Yeah.
focused on the ghost of her son that the daughters basically may as well not even be there. And so the grief has sort of blinded her. And the mother almost came across as, I don't want to say villainous because she wasn't evil or anything, but like this almost uncaring in a way towards Wen Chi because she was so focused on the ghost of the son. Was that like an intentional thing to make her almost come across as an unlikable character in a way, even though it's not even really her fault? She's, I don't know, I feel sympathy for her, but also like you're kind of annoying as well at the same time.
Yeah, so I did very much intend to make her like both sympathetic but unlikable at the same time, because we are looking through first person point of view through Winchi's eyes, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
So it's like whenever you do first person, there is an unreliable aspect to it. So Winchi can be like very antagonizing her mom in this case, just because this is how she feels like
Right.
like she's being neglected. But on the flip side, if we look at it through the mom's point of view, we might be far more sympathetic. And then it's kind of like the way with Mrs., right? Because we see it through her point of view, all her like over the top reactions and actions make more sense to us than if we just look at her from the outside through
Mhm.
another character's point of view.
Yeah, I don't know. There was something about the mom that just felt off. But again, if it's from her perspective, she's still grieving her child that was what I think you said he was like 4 years old, 5 years old, or something when he passed away. So that would be just one of the most traumatic things you could experience, and then having to live with that, and then not having the opportunity to get to see him again every day. And we never get to see him from her perspective, so we don't really know what he looks like for her. But from Wenqi's perspective, she doesn't really. She sort of sees like the outline, but she can't hear him talk if he's actually talking. She can't really make out his face. Was that something? What is the dynamic between that where Wenqi can't really see him, but supposedly seems like the mom, like he's actually physically there for the mom?
I was kind of like draw on the idea of how close you are, or like how many memories you have made with that person, and how it impacts like the ghosts that you see in this neighborhood. So it's kind of like the stronger connection you have to that person, the more you remember them, the more clear their image is, right? So for the mom, this wouldn't really be spoilery, I suppose, because I do hint at it. She basically sees him as he is, like in his entirety, as though he is, a human living child, compared to Wenqi, who was like 3 years old, 4 years old when he passed. So she doesn't remember nearly as much and have not experienced life nearly as much with him. And so naturally her image of him in her mind is like blurry, right? And it's hard to recall, especially with passing time. It only gets blurrier.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense than what I was thinking. I was just thinking like she didn't believe in it as much, so she didn't see him as much, but not having the memories makes a lot more sense. And the dad, for me, I never got a really good sense of if he was more like the mom, like he could actually physically see him, or if he was more like Wenqi. There's a few scenes where he does some things, but we never got a good sense of what he actually was able to see with the son. It was almost like he was trying to appease the mom, like, I'm just going to go along with what you're saying.
I think it's really funny because I've gotten a lot of comments about this, about my previous work too, where like the father figure always seems like a shadowy person in the narrator's life. And I feel like it really mimics the way that like a lot of my friends' fathers, not just my own father, right? And their position in our lives, where they are basically just like working constantly for the family. And so they're like almost never home. So they are very much a shadowy figure where they don't know too much about family life. They only know that they have to work hard for the family and try to keep them together through
They're
like
set in their ways,
monetary things.
basically.
Yeah. Like through monetary, and they have to be like, this like rough breadwinner that like, is the stone of the family, or, things like that. And they just can't show their vulnerability compared to, the mother figure or things like that.
They can't show any kind of emotion, really. I don't think. I mean,
Weakness, quote unquote.
Right. They're defeated. They have their routine. They have to go to work and be there on time and make the money for the household, and allow their wife, the mother, to be the emotional glue that holds the family together. So we're getting deep on a Friday night here, guys.
I liked what you're talking. Yeah, I liked what you're talking about a minute ago. That it was, I can't remember if it was I or Jay that said it, but like maybe the ghosts want to move on, but she's like, oh, he's going to show up every day at a certain time, and I'm going to feed him his breakfast, his favorite meal at the same time, and maybe he just doesn't want to do that anymore.
Right.
And maybe since they're in this sort of weird, I don't know, supernatural, paranormal place, that he has no choice at this point. I don't know.
I won't spoil too much about it, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, no, we don't want you.
The slight change. Yeah, the slight change in that dynamic as the story goes on, and I will leave it at that.
So for this, what's your elevator's pitch for? Since you did one for the AI one, what's your elevator's pitch for this one?
So it's basically about, like, LINGHUN is about a neighborhood where people go to buy haunted houses to live with the ghosts of their dead loved ones. Nailed it.
Nailed it.
People are dying to get in, literally. Boom, boom, boom. No.
They are. I mean, it shows how, like I said earlier, like grief can blind you. Like the whole auction scene, it's just like you didn't go into like the gory details of it, but it's a violent scene, shockingly violent compared to the rest of it. The rest of it's more sort of subtle and slow and insidious. It's not even insidious because the ghosts aren't malevolent at all. But then the auction scene, just like, wow, like they really have no regard for their fellow man. They're only concerned about getting these houses so they can, see their dead loved ones. And I like the way the juxtaposition of that scene compared to the rest of the novella. It's just the violence really, and the brutality of what these people would be willing to do really shined out in that scene.
Did you write this all in order, or did you have maybe that scene written and like you wanted to use it somewhere? 'Cause it just
So I never really write in order.
right. Okay, yeah, I think you mentioned it earlier, but because it seemed like that was like okay, that would have been the focus for a while. Just this person here, this person here, this person did this person, that scene. And for those who have no clue what we're talking about,
Read the book. Yeah.
Read the book and you'll see. Because
And
it's
then
about
come
the halfway,
back.
about the halfway mark there when that auction scene hits. You're like, oh, cool, what's going on here?
I think especially because it's like such a quiet book and you kind of like get dragged into the lull of home with the characters and how like
Yeah.
seemingly normal it is. We kind of
Mhm.
like need the auction scene to kind of remind people that no, this is not normal.
Yeah.
And you should not think this is normal at all. But yeah, like the auction scene was one that like lingered in my mind for a long time while I was writing the whole thing. So it like was written as a very contained scene before
Mhm.
like I added other stuff that needed to be added, that like happened around the
Yeah.
book. But
Because you mentioned the auction earlier in the book. I was like, oh, it's just going to be a normal auction. They're going to go bid. And it was like, this is not at all what I was expecting to
I was
happen.
picturing like a silent auction. People were going like
Yeah,
right
hold up their
down their
paddles.
bids for it, and yeah.
And all that, not to give too much away, but all that, like, you still might not have even gotten the house from that auction thing. You just had a chance to maybe get it, which is even crazier that you weren't just, it wasn't like a battle royale, one winner gets it all. It's maybe you'll get a percentage of a chance to maybe win a house.
I
Which
feel
even,
like the
I
no,
would
no,
say,
go
which
ahead.
lends even to the, even more how much humanity they've lost. Like, it's not the, I'm going to guarantee win it. It's like, I might get a chance, like playing the lottery. I got my ticket now. Now I can play the lottery and see if I win or not.
Right.
I feel like especially with grief, there are so many people who are willing to do so much more than they think they would, right? And if an
Mhm.
opportunity like this really does come up, like would people really not go for it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we think about our society now, like there are definitely people I know that would probably do it, especially when they're like so consumed with grief and they can't really see what's outside of it.
Mhm. Like, if this was a real thing and like I had a loved one that passed away and I had the opportunity to see him again, I feel like I would probably take the chance to try and do it. Especially if it was like one of my kids, definitely. What about you, Jay? You've got 2 kids. Would you?
Yeah. I mean, wow. Stop getting so deep.
I'm just, I mean,
I mean, that's just like we just got minute and deep and just like, hey Jay, would you try to bring back a loved one?
I mean, I'm talking kind of crap on the people in the book, but I feel like if it was real, I would be doing the same thing possibly if I had the opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't even believe in ghosts and all that stuff. Like, but still, if that was a thing, like, yeah, take a shot. And I mean, because
I don't even believe in you, but I want you to come back.
I don't. I mean, well, because this book isn't real, Jay.
You think you're up to read some? Or are you just too tired to?
Oh, you were talking to me. I thought you were talking to Brad. I got very confused.
Yeah, Jay, I'll read it for her.
She's zoned out. That's how tired she is. She's zoned out.
No. I was like, oh yeah, what are we reading?
Well, we were talking ahead of time that if you felt like you could read.
Yeah. Okay. So, well,
No
which one should
pressure.
I
I mean,
read then? Since
you
we
get,
like, do we want to like be a little lighter or like darker?
Let's go dark. Go super dark.
All right. I suppose it would
Darker
have
the
to
better.
be
Come
LINGHUN
on.
then. Okay. Let me just quickly pull it up. Ebook on standby. Haha. All right. So I will read like the first 5 or so minutes of
Go for it.
the novella. Yeah.
If you can do it, go for it.
Okay. So this is from the opening of LINGHUN. Sorry, I just realized. Okay, yeah. Wenqi. I studied dizzy and carsick into the kitchen to find mother unpacking. Her eyes dart everywhere rather than focusing on the task at hand. Bowls and plates litter the island, the dining table, and the edges of the sink. Cupboards sit open, empty. Father stands next to her, rubbing a hand across his stubbled chin, running a finger along a growing shadow of a mustache. His other hand rests against the sink, twitching, not knowing where else to place it or what he should be doing with it. The agent said it might take a while before he appears, Mother says in a feverish whisper, fixing her hair the way she used to right before leaving for a job interview. Before we got the house, she worked in a travel agency downtown, but that didn't last long. Mother said there was a new coworker who too closely resembled what my brother would have looked like as an adult. Their names were also similar. In the pamphlet she gave us, it says placing the items or photos around the house might help, Father says. Mother flings herself over to a box by the fridge and rips it open. She takes out several framed family photos. None are recent. All the pictures, like my brother, are frozen in time. Mother hurries around the house while Father and I stare. She places one frame on the dining table and one on the coffee table in the living room. Her footsteps thunder up the stairs. Doors open, close, footsteps pitter-patter, pitter-patter. She returns, and I imagine she has placed a similar family portrait on the desk in my room. Mother with her hand on my shoulder, the other hand on my brother's. Father behind her with a hand at her waist, and the other on my brother's head. When Mother returns, she grabs a stack of unframed photos, this time of only my brother. Ultrasounds, preschool and kindergarten pictures, him in a graduation cap, holding a certificate of excellence at the end of first grade. His photos end there. A younger me, half my brother's age, stands in the picture, clutching his arm with a wobbly smile and missing teeth. My brother was always the golden child, the one who carried the family's honor, the one who would have carried the family's name, as per tradition. Unlike me, who will only carry the name of my husband, if I marry. Mother and father often try to convince me that they are not as traditional as their parents, yet they doted on my brother, the firstborn son, and often forgot about me. They still do, even though he's gone. I'm convinced that, had they been offered the choice, my parents would have traded my life for my brother's, with little hesitation. At least, Mother would have, and probably still would, if given the chance. I grew up hearing her complain often about how Father's mother always insisting that my parents try for another son, but Mother was, and still is, too heartbroken to think about children. Mother disappears again. Father and I wait, listening to the ticking of a small clock, the same one Mother used for my brother's reading hours back when we still lived in Fuzhou. I still remember the way my brother drew me closer when he read so I could see the words, but they were always too advanced for my age. I can recall the images, but I don't recognize the Chinese characters in my memories. After Mother sets everything up, the three of us sit in the living room, waiting for something to happen, for my brother's promised appearance, but nothing does. Mrs. The new arrivals to the neighborhood moved into the house across the street. There's only one reason anyone would trek through the guarding trees to get to home. Not to seek new life, but to satisfy a longing for the dead. Houses and homes sate the unending hunger of those most vulnerable, unsuspecting. They feed on our desires, our pain, so much pain, and to wallow in such pain, it is a hideous thing. Isn't it strange how everyone here desires their homes to be haunted? You wonder if the newcomers will be the same as the others. You wonder if they too will be unrelenting, or perhaps they will be like you, unhaunted. I will stop there.
Dun, dun.
Nice.
It really sets up from the get-go the feeling we were talking about where the daughter seems like she doesn't matter, and it was all about the son that was no longer with us, and the mother only saw that. It's almost like, and I think that's something that we see a lot of times in like horror films and other books where, when it deals with a kid, first of all, when it deals with a kid, it gets pretty deep and dark, and it's got a really weird feeling to it. But when there's a sibling involved, the other sibling feels like, hey, they're lost in the mix, the whole time. So that really sets up the whole foundation of this book. Well done, yes.
There was one
thank you.
part, and I won't be able to quote it directly, but her when she and her mother were arguing, and like the mom asked, like, "What's wrong with you?" And she's when she answers, "I'm alive," or "I'm still alive."
Yeah.
Like that's the problem, that she's still here and the brother's not.
Yeah.
And
Have you always been this dark?
I remember it was very funny. Like the first time I put an author photo on Twitter, and people were like, "Wow, she's like this," and then her like her writing's like,
Yay.
So I am like an idealistically optimistic person, I would say, but I don't know why the things I write are
we going to
not.
uncover some of your stories from the 3rd grade, the ones that the teachers had to call your parents about? Like, hey, she's killing these Smurfs off. It's like,
I mean, 3rd grade. What did I write in the 3rd grade? I think I wrote about like
I don't know.
magic portals and wolves.
there you go. I did want to ask, was the home acronym, was that on purpose for it to spell out home? Or is that
Yeah.
just is it
I was
What came first? Did you have to figure out words to go with home, or?
Yeah, I had to figure out words to go with home. And then I was really struggling. I was like, I need something that like makes sense for the story. And like there's so many letters.
I mean, home is pretty cool. I think that just because it sets the feeling for the area. But then then you stuck with, okay, what could be H-O, try to figure out. Yeah.
Because I was trying to think about like the marketing tactics the agent would use too, right? So I was like, okay, what would logically make sense with this string of letters?
Because I feel like it has multiple meanings of this. It's the physical home that they're in, but also I feel like it's more like the families are the home, because they just moved in any random house and they could have brought their family members back. It didn't have to be a specific one where like they died in it or whatever.
Yeah.
The house itself just seems like a conduit for this to happen, and then the home itself is the families themselves. If that makes any sense.
No, yeah, I was just thinking a lot about the concept of home recently, because when I was writing this, my sister, like we were texting, and then she was like, "Oh," like I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go home at so and so time," and she was like, "Which home are you talking about?"
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about that fact, right? And the way that like sometimes I would travel, right, and then I would feel homesick. But then is it like because my family and spouse wasn't there, or because I was really homesick? Because like then I went to Scotland for a year to study for my master's. And even though it was like halfway across the world, I felt very at home there just because of the friends I made there,
Mm-hmm. What part of Scotland did you go to?
Edinburgh. It was very nice.
Oh, that's cool. I'd love to go. My wife went when she was in high school, I think. Did you do like the tours and like they're not the dungeons. What are they called? The crypts underneath?
Yeah, the vaults, the Edinburgh
yes.
vaults. So like my spouse came over and I brought him with us, and I won't ruin it too much, but they did this whole like, in the dark thing where they made you turn off your flashlights, and it was very cool. And he was just like, "What is going on?"
Because they said they're supposed to be haunted, right? Or I guess they touch you or whatever down in there.
Yeah, they do like ghost stories, and there was one point it was like completely dark, and the guide would like walk around. I don't know how they can see anything, but they would walk around and come closer and farther to you as they talk about the story. I'm just like, you have like very good, spatial awareness to not bump into anyone.
Wow. I don't know if I could do that.
Right?
Being that dark, yeah.
I was like, I used to work in a haunted house, and so we were used to the lights being off, and you do get acclimated to being able to walk around in the dark room without running into stuff.
It's still wild though,
So like you yourself, do you believe in ghosts or spirits or anything, or?
I feel like I am the type who is like, I don't believe anything exists, but I don't believe they do not exist unless proven otherwise.
Thanks for that political answer.
Well, I'm the same way, because like I don't believe in ghosts, but I don't discount other people's experiences. But I haven't experienced anything that makes me believe in ghosts yet.
Mhm.
If that makes sense.
Yes.
I
But I
I've
tend
been
to
to-
joke.
totally believe.
You believe?
Yeah.
What have you experienced something?
Yeah.
We don't need to get into with my stuff here. Well, I'm not the guest of honor this evening.
I would like to hear about it though.
No.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah,
that's for
Jay,
the,
tell
that's
us.
for the Patreon after hours, the pay stuff.
Have you been to
No,
any other
there's
haunted
been
places?
fillings and stuff. I mean, you got to say
Okay.
there's been fillings of things and
But not like a book flat off the shelf or
oddities.
anything? Or
I mean, just oddities and fillings and stuff, and where I believe that there are other things around at times, not always, not right
Mhm.
now. I mean,
not that you know of.
right, but
Have you all been? Both of y'all, have you all been to any other haunted locations other than the vaults are haunted for sure, supposedly anyway?
Mm, outside of like graves? No, I don't think so.
do you just
Jay-
hang out at cemeteries or?
She just hangs out of the
I mean-
grave. She's writing her stories.
Yeah. Do you just like find a random one? Oh, you just sit up against it, and start writing things down with your laptop, or
I meant like the graves that like my parents have brought me to as a child to like visit dead family members. No, not like
Wow,
drives
Jay,
by a
what if-
cemetery.
what if-
Let's go in there.
There's a new grade. I some funny. There's a I don't know if it's funny or not, but there's there's a little town just 5 minutes from me that we have to cut
Mhm.
through to get to like some of the shopping places, and there's a cemetery there. And my youngest daughter, anytime we go by any kind of cemetery, she goes, "Hi, dead people." Every single time, every single time, no matter what cemetery we're going by, it's always she's in the back. "Hi, dead people."
At least she's being polite.
Yeah,
That's
she is.
true.
So
Have you been to the Ohio State
I've not
Reformatory yet?
it's 45 minutes for me, and I've never been there. Born and
You need to
raised
do
here in Columbus, Ohio, and I've never been to the LSU Penitentiary.
The
So,
two biggest ones I've been to are there's a place local called Liberty Hall that's supposedly haunted by the Gray Lady, and kind of like it's on the way to take my daughter to school, so we drive past. She say, "Hi, Gray Lady," and then there's in Louisville the Waverly Hills Sanatorium. I've been in there, and that's supposed to be one of the most haunted places in the world, but I didn't experience anything while I was in there, so I'm still a skeptic, but I could be swayed.
there's
future, possibly.
there's a hotel down. My wife's from the Marietta, Ohio area, and there's an island, Leonard Hazard Island, that's on the Ohio River with the hotel that's supposed to be haunted.
Mhm.
I want to check it out at some point too.
The Shining.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Did you go to whatever it was they had? Was it last year in the Stanley? They had the Overlook thing. Did you go to that? It was like it's not Scares That Care. It's I can't remember what it's called. I think James Sabatha puts it together. It was right around the same
No.
time as StokerCon, I think.
Oh, then no, I don't. Is it the library one?
Maybe.
The-
Oh, it's
The
gonna bother me. I
archives.
can't think of what it's called, but they did it in the Overlook last year before last. Spirited Giving is what the event's called.
Interesting. I'll
Are
have
you
to
even
look
into
it
that?
up.
I mean, are you like into like horror stuff, or do you just write it and just
It depends on the type of horror, I think. But like with supernatural and spirit things, I'm definitely into it. But then I'm also like too much of a small bean to try to like look too much into it. I'm like, oh yes, what's going on over there?
let me know when
No,
it's
that-
done? Okay.
Tell me about it. Just summarize it for me. Yeah.
So it's not something you actively seek out to go to these haunted locations.
No. But I am convinced that cats can see ghosts.
I've heard that before.
I think dogs can't. I think they see stuff that we don't. Yeah.
Yeah, because like my cats at home, all like they're always like, just minding their own business. Suddenly they'll be like, and I'm just like, what are you even
What's wrong with
looking
you?
at up there? Yeah. And I'll be like, hello? Anyone there?
I
And then
think
my spouse,
sometimes babies can too, because they're always looking at corners and I don't know.
that's true.
I'll tell one quick story, and then I'll shut up. When
We just totally got creepy, didn't we?
when my first child was born, we came home from the hospital, and my wife was sitting in the living room, and like the TV is in front of us, and then there's a doorway, and all the lights are off. We're watching whatever, and she thought she saw like a person lean out from the doorway and go back in, and then one of our
Oh.
dogs would not come through that doorway for like a month, like right around the same time. Like he would stop there and just whimper and would not come into the room, like he was terrified. But there was nothing there, nothing else had changed. It was in the same spot she supposedly saw that person lean over. It was just like a shadow head or whatever.
So why don't you believe if you had that experience?
Because I didn't see the shadow person, and the dog is just he's a dummy, so he didn't want to come in the room.
They have different kind of senses than we do.
They did, but it was the same doorway, like where she saw it. He would not come in that room for like a month. He would just stand there. He wanted to come in, but he wouldn't do it. He would just sort of stand there and whimper, and then go back the other way. So that's my ghost story. I don't know what it would have been. I always believe the dog.
Yes.
I did want to mention real quick, there's going to be a special edition of LINGHUN coming out later this year in October. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
It's with like the
I
part
wrote
of the horror box. Oh, sorry. Yes. Go
Is
ahead.
Unplugged book box. Is that correct?
Yes, so it's like with
Okay.
their sister horror box called Twisted Retreat, I believe. So they're gonna have, like a limited edition hardcover kind of
Oh,
thing
nice.
with like the sprayed edges and everything. And I'm just
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, so I'm very excited to see what they do with it.
Sprayed
Is there going to be
edges. Nice.
Just don't.
That's when you know you made it. You got special.
So is there anything content wise added in there, like any like pictures or additional stories or anything, or just be hardcover, or do you not know yet?
So LINGHUN itself does have like, the additional short stories. So I think they're gonna just do the whole thing. So with the forward, my afterward essay, and like the 2 short stories.
Okay.
Yeah, but then it's gonna have like all the little themed goodies that they will pick, and I'm excited to see what they put with it. I hope they put tea because they have to put tea.
I feel like all those book boxes, they do some kind of tea every month.
That's
all the
true.
time. Is it going to have the same cover, or do you know they're doing a different special edition cover?
I actually don't know like if they're doing a different cover or not yet. So I suppose we will see.
That's nice. So do you have to sign them all in?
I think we're doing the tipped in pages. So
Okay.
the first time. I feel
That's
so
gonna be nice.
official.
Do you know how many copies it's going to be?
Like
Limited to how
bragging
many?
rights. Like, look at
Yeah,
this copy.
I have no clue yet, but I will be sure to post it on Twitter as they come in. Be like, look
Yes.
at this stack of paper. I am signing stacks of papers now.
Speaking of which, I we want to get you out of here so you can get some sleep. And I know your mom wants to start writing your next book. But speaking of Twitter, where else can people find you? You got Twitter, and what else?
You can find me on my website. It's basically just like my name and then .ca, not .com. And then you can also find me on Facebook by just my name. Usually it pops up. So
Okay.
And also, really quick, you also, I don't know if it's done yet, but you've been working on editing an anthology, Wilted Pages, as well with Christine Ogle.
yes. So we've like turned in all the short stories basically except one for proofreading. So
Mhm.
that is, I think, for the Kickstarter backers. Oh no, I'm not supposed to say that. Sorry, didn't
Edit.
No,
pretend that didn't
ignore
happen.
that. Ignore that.
Sleep
But it is,
deprivation. That's
Say the jury.
didn't
You
say
ignore
anything.
that, jury.
but it's supposed to ship out I believe mid-September, so coming up pretty quickly. I'm like very happy that like we got everything turned around so quickly because we had our open submissions in March and then it's coming out September. So which is great because I'm sure the authors will want to see their works come out, sooner rather than later as well.
Is there an overall theme for that anthology? What is it? I wrote down dark academia. So all
Yes.
dark kind of magic. And what is academia exactly? Is it just sort of like learning, the higher learning, and like spell schools and weird stuff like that?
So the way we kind of approached it is kind of like the history of inequity and injustice when it comes to higher education systems. So it's like more so about stories about the unfairness of like student loans, or like the way some institutions might favor some people with like a higher status compared to others and things like that, rather than just like the dark academia aesthetic of like magic schools and the whole outfits and stuff like that. Yeah.
All right. How many stories are in there? Do you know off the top of your head?
19. No, 20. Yeah, 19 or 20.
That's a good size anthology.
Yeah.
Is that the first time you've done something like
That's
that,
about
editing an
usual,
anthology?
right? Yeah.
Yeah, so this is my first edited anthology. It was like a story, like a not a story, sorry, an idea. I forgot I was like talking about it, and then my co-editor, Christy Nogle, reached out, and then she was like, "Oh, like you had this idea, and do you want to like do something together with it?" So like we actually started talking about this idea since December of 2021.
Oh
So
dang.
it's been yeah, and then it finally came to be like into fruition. Yeah.
I read
That's cool.
Beulah by Christy Noble, right?
Ah,
Yeah,
yeah.
about last year.
Christy is great.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So was this a completely different experience than working on your own stuff by yourself?
Yes and no, because I've like edited for magazines or like served as a reader for it, so it was kind of similar in a sense, but this time you would like you have a more of an editing role, like or like a touch on the stories
Hmm.
compared to with magazines where it might just be kind of like the EIC who does like most of the editing, whereas you mostly just pick stories that's been passed on to you and things like that.
Cool. So you're super busy all the time now. That's what it sounds like.
I feel like when I keep busy, it is a lot better for me in a sense, like of like time management because I like use my time more wisely than when I have too much free time.
Yeah.
Mhm. And I might be wrong, but LINGHUN, that's like your first longer piece, right? Because mostly before you did like poems and short stories.
Yeah, so it was really funny because I think that's one of the reasons why it ended up as 3 points of views as well, because I'm so used to writing short things. It
Hmm.
is very difficult for me to write like a long thing and only one perspective the whole way through. Though
Hmm.
my next novella, Unannounced Thing, is one perspective
The
all way
secret stuff.
the whole way through.
But I come from
But
school that there are no rules. Just do it the way you want to do it because it's your
yes.
piece of writing. So
So are you liking working on these longer pieces now, as opposed to doing the short stuff, or you still like the short stories and poems and stuff?
I like short stories and poems for very experimental things that are hard to stretch into very long pieces. But
Hmm.
then I like the long form in the sense that, like, a lot of comments I get about my short stories sometimes is that it needs to be longer.
Wish it was longer. I wish that I was longer, but I like the story, but I was like, I want more in that world because I like that world so much.
I feel like with I and LINGHUN both, a lot of the comments I get are, I need this to be longer. So, so I'm working on it. But
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 you
I
don't want to
do
start
like
making it longer, which is putting in filler stuff, though. So
yeah, no,
Yeah.
no.
so again, there are no rules. Make it the way you want to make it. So
Yeah. I always hear about, with publishing, how people talk about there are like book length standards for different
yeah,
genres, right? And I'm just like I like with the way I write, I don't think I can hit those at all because they will say something like 80 to 100K for sci-fi and then like 100 to 120 for fantasy and then a bit
Hmm.
lower for horror, right? Like maybe around 70, 80. I don't know. I don't know what
Yeah.
it is now. It's been fluctuating.
right.
But the novel I just finished, the one I added 20K to, it is science fantasy. So theoretically, it should be like 80K, but it like in its first iteration, it is 45,000 words. And I was like, I
Hmm.
don't think I can go past 80 at all or like
Yeah.
near it, even after expansion. And that's just how it's gonna be.
Yeah, because I think the readers could tell when, oh, I've added in 30,000 words of just fluff just because I
Mhm.
needed to hit the word count instead of
Mhm.
it being slim and trim and to the point of what you wanted it to be. Readers can tell that.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like with like the whole paper situation right now, people have been wanting shorter things anyways.
I feel like for fantasy, if it's not 1,000-page brick, then you're just not making a fantasy novel. That's basically like
Yeah.
all the really popular, like Brandon Sanderson and George R. Martin, all they're these huge books.
I'll
And
pass.
you'll pass. Jay doesn't
You
like
know,
Jay doesn't like fantasy.
know what though? I always like to say to be the trend rather than follow the trend. So I
That's
will
right.
come out with like 60,000 epic fantasy books that people will pick up as like a
It'd be
intro
one.
into
It's gonna be like the
fantasy.
first fantasy book that actually gets wrapped up into one book. You
Not a
don't need
15 book
16
series.
different episodes of it, and
Yeah, not only are they 1,000 pages, but there's 10 in the series.
right. We don't need 16 books in the series. It's gonna be the first fantasy book that's 100 pages
One and done.
and it's all wrapped up.
Ai's gonna be a trendsetter. One and done. She's the leader, not the follower.
All right,
It
we
seems
gotta
like-
we gotta get you out of here so you get some sleep. We gotta.
So
you're
there's a
fading.
lot of your work people to look forward to. LINGHUN's out, special edition coming out in October. I just came out recently. Got your anthology coming out, Wilted Pages. Your novel you just procrastinated and finished at the last second, coming out sometime soon, next year or so, year after that. A lot of stuff to
Yes.
look forward to.
And unannounced things that hopefully
Unannounced
is forthcoming.
secret things.
Unannounced, we can't announce. So, thank you so much for hanging out with two goofballs here with all of our mistakes. We can never take 3 weeks off again, Brad. By the way,
It's okay. We'll just cut that out in post.
but we don't.
No,
do
we won't.
that. Read
We
my
don't
essay.
do that.
We don't do that. Read my essay in Sirens. We don't do that. So,
What you
No.
see is what you get.
thanks so much for hanging out with us. We really appreciate it. Stopping by and hey, 2 times now you've been on the show. A lot of people have not been on the show for 2 times, so we appreciate that you wanted to come
We'll
back.
We'll see if maybe it eventually turns into a third time, or if she like ghosts us and
Oh yeah.
Oh,
No,
you guys?
never.
go to your
She's
profile.
right.
You've been blocked. No, I'm just
During the show,
No.
she's texted some people like, "Why'd you tell me to go on the show again?" During the
No,
show.
no. Well, thank you.
A lot of
both
stuff
so
to look
much.
for Ai that's out there, and yeah, check it out. Let us know what you think about it. That's going to do it. That's a wrap. She's gonna go crash right now.
No,
Um,
I just want
our-
to thank you both again so much for having me and for like having such nice things to say about my works, because I feel like
They were-
that's the best thing a writer can hear, is someone that that people resonated and liked their work.
Yeah,
They're both.
thanks.
I and LINGHUN were completely different, but they were both very enjoyable. I enjoyed both of them
it really shows
for
that
different
you-
reasons too.
Yeah, it really shows your span of
Your-
writing, like you can do
Your range.
your range. You're not just a one trick pony. You could do this, and this. So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Oh, thank
All right.
you.
I think that's
So,
going to be a
pre-
wrap, everyone.
Appreciate you spending your night with us.
Thank you for
Get some
tuning
sleep.
in.
Go eat something.
Yeah.
I
Go-
ate something
go-
before I came, so
Okay.
She's going to sleep until Tuesday.
oh my gosh, I really am.
Yeah, it's a wrap. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Till next time, everyone. Thanks for hanging
All right,
out.
have a good
We'll
night.
See ya.
Jay, I love you,
now.
man.
I know you do. I'm glad you got to see me.